Manchester United 0, Newcastle United 0. A frustrating day at Old Trafford. Mina, how are you feeling?
Let me just address what KG said in his fan cam, yeah? He lied on me. Let's talk about Fred. Let's talk about what I said about Fred. Fred had a horrible game, yeah? He had a horrible game. KG took my words out of... He literally twisted it. He twisted it ridiculously. I said Fred gets into positions because he's just running all the time. He's just running all the time. That's all I was saying. And I said, we need to question why Fred gets into positions that Bruno, Sancho and Anthony should be occupying. And I thought it was a valid argument. KG came here and just lied on my name.
Wow. I was like Ricky Bobby. I didn't know what to do with my hands. Oh, that was amazing. How do I follow that up?
Let's talk about the game.
Okay. Where to start? Ten Hag, should he have made more substitutions? Is there any individual performances you think should be scrutinised, or was it just disappointing all round?
It was just a disappointing performance. Like, I can't single out one person because I can't think of one person that was even good. I think Martinez was all right. Varane was decent, but then again, Newcastle wasn't throwing much at us. We're saying that we didn't create much chances. Newcastle didn't. They looked like they were just, their tactic was just to hoof the ball into the box, target the height problem that we have. You know, we had Casemiro and Fred in the middle together, occupying that space, but Joelinton and Almiron were running into that space quite often. They didn't create much chances from that, but they were able to get into some good places. And I think Casemiro, Fred...
So what do you think of the midfield performance today, Mina?
I think Casemiro and Fred, they were occupying spaces, they were breaking stuff down, but they were a bit careless with the ball. We gave a lot of space in the middle of the park just to kind of be attacked by Almiron, Joelinton, and I think the biggest issue for us specifically was the fact that our fullbacks were playing a bit inverted every time we were playing out from the back. We weren't utilising our wingers much. I think Anthony did quite okay on the right. He was taking on his players, and I think we should have just kept attacking them from that side. I look at the performance today and you know, we didn't create any clear-cut chances, and I think that's the issue. We had that issue on Thursday where we were creating 30-something chances, but none of them were really clear-cut. Today we created like 15 chances, 2 of them on target, and I think that that's a poor statistic when we have the likes of Ronaldo, Bruno, Sancho, Anthony on the pitch that are people that can score. I think the 2 main chances that we had came in the last 5-10 minutes, and it fell to Fred, which... some people are going to question. I'm going to question why he's the only player in the box at that point. If he wasn't there, Rashford gets around the keeper and there's no one for him to pass it to. He's just going to have to take a very poor angled shot. So I think that today's performance, I don't really have much to say. Honestly, it's just one of those games where Ten Hag, we look at the squad depth that I've spoken about so many times, and you look at our bench and Fred, particularly his performance. In that first half, I don't know why he didn't get hooked. I personally don't think so. I think Ten Hag spoke about it at the beginning of before the match, saying that, you know, these academy players, they got to prove it. They have to earn their position in the squad. But then he also spoke highly about Zidane Iqbal in pre-season. So would this have been a game to give Iqbal an opportunity to show him what he can provide? I don't think anyone would have come up from the bench and had a worse performance than Fred did in the middle. Like, I don't think any of, like, the 2 academy options that we could have played in Mina and Iqbal, I don't think they would have done as bad as Fred. But overall, I just think it's just one of those games where we got to move on from it. Like, Newcastle didn't come out amazing today. We're actually quite lucky because Newcastle have been looking decent this season. But we just need to create chances. I think retaining possession is the most important thing. And we did have like 63% possession, but none of it was meaningful possession. It was not meaningful possession, and I think that's where we kind of messed up the most.
Why do you think the front 3 was so sort of static? Was that partly because of Newcastle, the way they set up? Is that because they're still adjusting to how Ten Hag wants to play? Is it a lack of pace maybe? What do you think it is?
You know what, I think when you're playing 3 different people up front every other game, it's hard for people to build relationships, especially when, you know, Eriksen, who I think is the midfield glue for us, because we've seen in our Premier League wins prior to this, you know, Sancho, when he was playing, he was linking up with Eriksen, McTominay, Malacia, you know, Luke Shaw had an okay cameo. Like, is generally the front 3, I can't say what their issue was. Sancho wasn't taking on his man a lot. Anthony was couldn't get past him, got past him a few times, put a poor ball into the box, and every time that they put balls into the box, they're targeting Ronaldo. But there was one specific chance that Anthony actually had where Bruno was making a run into the box next to him, and he could have just cut it back and Bruno could have had a shot, but Anthony decided to target Ronaldo in the box, and I think that's what it's just the decision making, like on our half was was just bad. I think Rashford came on playing through the middle. Was that the best option? Some people might argue that he should have been on the left, but then we take off Sancho, and then what happens there? It's just one of those games where you're thinking, oh, thank God that's over. Thank God that game's over, because I don't want to see and I was gonna say I don't want to see a performance like that again this season, but I have a feeling that we will, because it's a learning curve. Ten Hag's figuring everything out. He's figuring out his players. I think a game like this just shows squad depth is so important, and players being fit is so important, because, Eriksen was out due to illness, that's understandable, but Anthony Martial, who, I'm a big fan of, and I want him to do well, a game like this with him and Rashford starting together could have been actually a good performance, but he's been unable to be fit. We don't know when he's going to be back. Maybe Spurs game, maybe Chelsea game, but we really, with United, and I said this in the stream, the issue is I look at the team every game, and I think, where are our goals going to come from? A few years ago, you would know where your goals are going to come from, because we were scoring rapidly and we were scoring fast. Rashford was on form, Martial was on form, Bruno was in phenomenal form. And now I'm looking at the game every day, every time we play, and I'm thinking, where's our goals coming from? Is it going to come from Anthony? Is it coming from Sancho? Is it coming from... Is Martinez going to score his first United game? I just don't know. So I think that's one thing that Ten Hag has to think about. And now we got a run of fixtures. We still got 5 games in the month. We're only halfway through the month. We played 4. We got 5 games a month, and they're all important games. They're all 3 points. I think we were lucky I don't say we were lucky to get a point, because I don't think Newcastle threw much at us today, but also we didn't deserve 3 points today. So it's just a nitty-gritty draw, and it's on to next.
Do you think Ten Hag knows his strongest 11 at this point, or is he still trying to figure that out?
Oh, that's a good one. I think I think he knows who he can rely on, because we see the likes of Martinez playing. Yeah. We see, De Gea playing. Dubravka, I have not seen him in between.
You're in Dubravka FC?
Shout out to Marcel and Dubravka FC, because I didn't even know he had a fan base. But we haven't seen him play. We've seen the likes of, Eriksen, except for today when he got sick. Bruno. We know who the players that he can count on. But then there's rotation. There's a lot of the times when we're not performing, and we've seen it in the Europa League games, that it's always the left-sided side that gets hooked. So on Thursday it was Sancho and Malacia. And they got hooked, if I'm not wrong. It was Sancho and Malacia, and they got hooked. And then even today, he thought that the left-hand side did okay. But in the last few games, when players are hooked, it's normally coming from the left-hand side. So I think that we look at the starting lineups. There's some players that are playing consistently. I think Ten Hag is still figuring it out. We're only in October. He's only been in the job for 2 months, actually managing the team for 2 months. I don't expect him to know his best 11. I don't know what our best 11 is. I think the players don't even know every week if they I think there's only guaranteed starters every week, and the rest is interchangeable. I really want to see in the Europa League, I want to see the academy kids get an opportunity, because a game like the Premier League, when we're missing Scott McTominay, we're missing Eriksen. Obviously, he doesn't want to throw in our academy players, but if they're not getting opportunities elsewhere, how can we expect them to provide that squad depth that we so desperately need? And we won't be addressing these issues, I think, in the January window. So we're going to have to make do with what we got right now.
Make do with what we got. There you go. United, a draw 0-0 with Newcastle.